Okay. All right. How food is causing you pain? Welcome. I'm going to put this in another format that's easier to get through, like that. There. All right. So who am I? My name is Cindy Richard. I'm a certified holistic health and nutrition coach and food professional. My husband and I live in New Brunswick, Canada, on the coast, and we have a little food business that we run from May to October. And I'm also doing health coaching with my education. So when chronic illness started to really affect my life, I started looking into more preventative and natural ways to feel better. I teach people all over how to make lifelong lifestyle changes by living a holistic lifestyle that helps us to feel happy, healthy, and confident. My passion is empowering people to take charge and learn how to take control of their health by learning a natural, holistic solutions for achieving their optimal health goals, whatever that may be. Okay, my computer is kind of slow today, so these transitions might be sticky. All right, is this training right for you? Well, this training is right for anyone who's experiencing chronic pain or chronic symptoms. For people who perhaps have endured a acute trauma to their body, such as a car accident or maybe some type of surgery that they're having issues with, that is a different kind of pain than exactly what I'm discussing tonight. However, this training will not be of a loss to you, given that basically we're speaking about inflammation in general, and so anyone who's experiencing pain can benefit from this type of training. So what will you learn in this training? Well, number one, the infuriating truth about today's food industry. Number two, how propaganda exposes us and our children with strategically targeted sick care marketing made to program you into making food and lifestyle choices that actually promote disease. Number three, how our food, environment, and lifestyle can contribute to inflammation and chronic illness. And number four, what steps you can take to turn things around in order to achieve your optimal health. And this is my disclaimer. I am not a licensed practitioner, physician, dietitian, nurse, or medical professional. This group document course is informational only. Anything you learn here is to be utilized, taught, shared at your own risk. If you are gaining information for your own health, client issues, and they have a medical condition of any kind, you or they must maintain treatment as prescribed by a physician, regardless of my recommendations or advice, or any use of suggested online guides, supplementation, websites, or products. In the case of medical diagnoses, it is vital to work with a physician to determine the best course of action and to never replace one treatment for another that goes against a physician's advice. None of these recommendations, suggestions, or written information provided in this group, document, course, website, page, blog, or within communication here or in messages, boards, forums are intended to replace medical advice of any kind. The information presented is never intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Full medical clearance from a licensed physician should be obtained before beginning or modifying any diet, exercise, or lifestyle program, and physicians should be informed of all food changes. And this is my responsibility to say. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. So I got my first migraine headache at the age of 7 years old. I'll never forget it. My parents were actually on vacation, and I was staying with my sister, who was at the time just turning 16 years old, and her boyfriend and her boyfriend's mother. So basically, she was the one taking care of us. And my sister basically hated me. Of course, I was the little brat in the house, and this was nothing I had ever experienced before in my life. And I don't think the lady taking care of me really knew what to do. And my sister knew there was something wrong because she actually stayed with me through the whole thing. And it lasted hours until I was able to fall asleep. So that was my first experience with that. And then I was always suffering from allergies, chronic infections, asthma. My mother was always bringing me to some kind of doctor to have needles put in my back, or doing some kind of testing. I always had an inhaler. Um, in today's From today's perspective, looking back, if there was these types of overdiagnosis of ADD and ADHD, I would have been diagnosed with ADD. I definitely would have been an ADD child. However, I was not. That was not something that they did back then, and I was born in the 70s, and which I'm grateful for. You know, we were just considered spirited children, and I was never labeled, and which is wonderful to me, because that's what I find really happens today. And I actually graduated 13th in my class with honors, and that just goes to show you that labels go far with people, and they can affect people. And then I started with chronic pain at the age of 14 years old. I didn't know what was happening to me. I was experiencing some excruciating pain. I remember the first incident of this was at a lunch table in the cafeteria in my high school. I was only maybe a freshman, surrounded by lots of older kids, and at a table with girls and boys, and having the breath taken out of me and needing to stand up because I was having shooting pains up my vajayjay, and I just didn't know what was happening. And this went on for a while, and I was put on all kinds of, I was given all kinds of testing, and I was put on all kinds of hormones and different things, and finally put on the birth control pill for a while to control symptoms. And then, ooh, what is that? I think I cracked my, ooh, I don't know what's happening to my computer. That's not good at all. I don't know what that is. I don't know if you guys can see that. There's little red lines. Oh, it's gone now. Yay. Okay, let me go back to where I was. Something happened here. So strange. Ooh. Sorry, guys. I don't know if you can see that. Okay, so someone's sending me a message. All right. So yeah, so that was that. They put me on the birth control pill to try to relieve symptoms. Then when I got out of high school, started college, I was medicated for depression and anxiety for the first time. I was about, I'd say between the age of 19 and 22. I was experiencing major symptoms. I wouldn't even leave my house until the very last minute to go to work, because I was providing for myself. But it was excruciating, and it was hard. And I got no relief from medication. In fact, I would feel crazy in my skin, really. And then I was seen in and out of hospitals for IBS and digestive issues. I had colonoscopies, checked for all kinds of things. I suffered from PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian disease, and was hospitalized for ruptured ovarian cysts. I was then finally diagnosed. I actually had gotten married at this age, and was trying to get pregnant, and the pain had come back tenfold. And so at that point, I finally ended up going back to doctors and was diagnosed with endometriosis, and that was the age of 25. And I dealt with major pain, major painful periods, ovulations. Actually, ovulation was so excruciating that I would have friends, regardless of who they were, men or women, whoever was in the room, sit on me. So sit on my lower stomach in order to just push the pressure of the pain. It was ridiculously embarrassing, but it worked, and I did it. People always wondered what was wrong with me. And then I dealt with infertility. I was completely infertile and unable to have children. So that continued anxiety and depression for me for a long time, and stress. And then as I came upon my late 30s, early 40s, so I did end up having about 3 procedures for the endometriosis, and it ended up coming back again, very strong. And so I ended up being seen again for another laparoscopy, exploratory surgery, and was found again to have stage 4 endometriosis with organ attachment. And that led me to have terrible, painful bowel movements, as well as chronic back pain. And then I started suffering for even more symptoms um, that ended up showing themselves later on, which included eczema, and joint pain, carpal tunnel, hip pain, like bursitis, and then plantar fasciitis in my feet, extremely painful. And as a chef, I was having problems using a knife and could barely walk sometimes. And I was very, very scared. And so ended up again having more and more testing, and was told that I was having antibodies against my thyroid, and that I had Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is considered an autoimmune disease, which, excuse me, also endometriosis really is another version of autoimmune disease, basically caused by hormones. But and so, what did the doctors say? Well, basically, the doctors said, here's what you got, and we can give you a pill for that. So it was a lot of diagnose and adios. And that's really been my experience for my entire life. And so this was my life for over 35 years. And I was in pain. I was confused. I was fed up. I was depressed. And I was extremely angry. So I went back to school. And I completely changed my life. And I got better. So after a long-term commitment of making certain changes, I am 98% symptom-free. I'm free of anxiety and depression, except for, when my 26-year-old stepdaughter calls me, because she can make me quite anxious. But I can feel it. I can feel it. It's not something that is just normal to me. I know the difference now. Majority of the time free of endo pain, except for during, my menstrual cycles, which is to me fairly normal, or what I would have wanted to consider normal, when people talked about it. So that's amazing to me. My antibodies are down on my thyroid count, and my I've actually been seen by a specialist, an endocrinologist, who has basically told me that I do not have Hashimoto's disease, and that they will just continue to keep an eye on my thyroid. So that's really cool. That was quite hectic for a while. My sciatica has pretty much resolved itself, and I've been basically medication free for a good 2 solid years, although I do have some permanent sensitivities, including some food allergies. So you might be asking, well, how does food cause my pain? What does this all mean? So, just taking a look at this picture, this is pretty much a basic picture of what is called the SAD diet, or the standard American diet, or the MAD diet, which is the modern, basically, American diet. And this is how the majority of us eat, and it's fairly normal to us. We don't think of it any other way. But food, and some certain foods, cause inflammation. So inflammation is what is causing pain. So as you can see in this diagram, inflammation has a two-way street to many chronic issues that we experience, from anxiety to depression, leaky brain, leaky gut, autoimmune disease, dysbiosis, stress. So stress causes inflammation, inflammation causes stress. It's a two-way street, basically. And so we're going to talk a little bit about today's food industry, which is just an infuriating topic, really. So we're bombarded by these things that our body just cannot tolerate. And these include pesticides, chemicals, GMOs, or genetically modified foods or genetically modified organisms, food engineering and processed foods, food additives. An example of that would be MSG, artificial colors, artificial sweeteners, our meats that are treated inhumanely and are raised in unsanitary conditions. And because of that, they are loaded and stuffed with antibiotics and steroids. And then sugar. Sugar is a big culprit, and added sugars and processed sugars. And those are added in huge amounts into our food supply. So just talking about pesticides, so glyphosate is a pesticide, and that's the pesticide known as Roundup. So Roundup was introduced in 1974. Ironically, I was born in 1973. And in 2016, it was estimated that there was a 100-fold increase. Now, 100-fold doesn't mean 100 times. 100-fold means 100 times 100 times increase in the usage of Roundup than it was in the late 1970s. So just imagine. And it's absorbed through foliage and also through the roots and seeds. And in 2015, the World Health Organization classified glyphosate as probably carcinogenic to humans. And of course, though, other studies, many funded by food companies, continue to show that glyphosate is not dangerous to humans in the amounts that they're utilizing in the food supply. However, when you consider that, you need to keep into account bioaccumulation. Okay, so bioaccumulation is the accumulation of substances such as pesticides or other chemicals in an organism. Bioaccumulation occurs when an organism absorbs a substance at a rate faster than at which the substance is lost by catabolism and excretion. Thus, the longer the biological half-life of a toxic substance, the greater the risk of chronic poisoning, even if environmental levels of the toxins are not very high. So, you know, we as a society are accumulating these poisons, toxins, pesticides at neck-breaking speeds. I mean, it's in everything. So, you know, they say that these levels are not dangerous to us. Well, they're talking about the levels they're measuring that they're using on one particular crop. Not many crops, not many products, and we're consuming many crops and many products. And so bioaccumulation is serious, and it's affecting us all. And so part of that comes into play with GMO foods. So GMO foods are genetically modified foods. They're bioengineered, and they're actually created with permanent changes made to their structural DNA. And so a lot of money crops are modified with glyphosate right in the DNA. Okay, so the pesticide has been genetically put into the food, into a seed, and then grown. So the glyphosate is in the plant. It's literally part of its DNA. And they do that so that they can spray even more pesticides on plants, because what was happening was the more and more they were spraying these pesticides, the more resistant the plants were becoming to the pesticides, and they were still growing weeds. So they just used more. So now they have plants that are more resistant to weeds and the pesticides themselves. So it's crazy. They just pile more and more pesticides and herbicides on our food. So some of the big money crops, some of the big GMO crops are soybeans. Soybeans are 94% GMO. Corn, 92%. Canola, 90%. Cotton, 96%. Sugar, which is in everything, and all of this stuff is in everything, is 70%. Sugar beets, which is another form of sugar, same as corn, high fructose corn syrup is added to everything. Sugar beets is another type of sugar that they use in order to sweeten processed foods, is 54%. Excuse me, and even papayas from Hawaii are 75% genetically modified. And there's so much more, okay? So personal care products, makeup, lipstick, has heavy metals, and mascara. Deodorant has aluminum in it. You name it. There's endocrine disruptors in our personal care products, carcinogens, neurotoxins. And then we go down and continue into the household cleaners. So all of the toxic products that we use in our homes, from sprays to air fresheners to soaps, shampoo, laundry detergent, dryer sheets, the list goes on and on. So candles, artificial fragrances, they're very toxic. Environmental toxins, such as mold, which is another part of my story. Food and skin allergies and sensitivities, and overuse of antibiotics and medications, nutrient deficiencies, and a huge, huge, huge one is stress. And we're buying it all. And I use this picture. Ooh, I'll go back. Try to go back. Well, you saw them. They were sitting there eating Chinese food, and that was my MO. I would do anything for Chinese food. Full of MSG. Never felt good after I ate it, but I would eat it like it was going to be gone tomorrow, and I would eat it till it was gone. I was terrible with that. But so there was a Washington Post article on consumer spending in 2017. And this just goes to show you how food is marketed to us and our children. So we, as consumers, spent $10.7 trillion in products. And they spend, big companies, spend $117 billion in marketing. And that's just food advertising. Then it's estimated that it's about $3 billion that they spend in pharmaceutical ads. And I don't know if you've ever watched, it's not so bad in Canada because of the single payer system that we have here, but I don't know if you've ever watched a US news channel, but every commercial has at least 3 pharmaceutical ads in it. And that's every commercial through the same show. It's absolutely crazy to me. So you say, okay, well, that's all well and fine. I get it. We're poisoning ourselves. But how is this causing me pain? Well, our digestive tract is what protects us from all of these toxins. So our body is made to endure some level of this toxic exposure. We've always been exposed to toxins. But it's our digestive system's job to kind of filter that all out and get rid of what we don't need and what we shouldn't have in our systems. And so the problem is when we're overloaded with things such as stress, the toxins, food particles, pharmaceutical drugs, over-the-counter medications, pathogens, and sometimes it can be affected by organ malfunction. We actually wear a hole into our gut lining. Okay, so our gut lining is actually where our nutrients are also absorbed. And after time, these toxins and these pathogens wear a hole into our gut lining, and you can see in the picture that there's supposed to be these tight seals, okay? And then it actually bears a hole, and that becomes gut permeability, and it becomes known as leaky gut. And what happens is when this happens, all of these toxins and food, undigested proteins in food, these pathogens, these toxins, they all seep into our bloodstream, including recycled feces. So you could be getting anything that's bad for you recycling into your bloodstream. And so what happens when that happens is we can develop food intolerances because of undigested proteins that are able to seep through our gut lining and into our bloodstream. And this affects our immune system. So what happens is that our immune system is there to protect us from these things, from viruses and bacteria, and they're pretty good at that. But when the body is being bombarded and all of these toxins are flying through, our immune system starts shooting at things, like you're not supposed to be here. And they start shooting at them, and it starts to go crazy, and it can't really keep up. Then what happens is it actually starts shooting or attacking our own healthy cells and tissues. And that's what's known as autoimmunity. And when you're dealing with autoimmunity, you start to deal with some serious chronic symptoms. So here, autoimmunity is the body's immune system, where the body's immune system attacks its own healthy tissues and cells. So some examples of autoimmunity would be arthritis, like rheumatoid arthritis, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, where the body is attacking its own thyroid gland. So arthritis and RA is when the body is attacking joints, healthy joints. MS, or multiple sclerosis, so that's the nervous system. Systematic lupus. Endometriosis, which is actually caused by excess estrogen, but it acts as an autoimmune disease where the endometrial tissue that's on the inside actually grows on the outside and affects the lining. And then some other examples are fibromyalgia, Crohn's disease, and there's many, many others. So then another level of leaky gut, which can happen, is when your body goes out of balance with yeast. And so this is known as Candida. So this is the overgrowth of bad bacteria. Okay, so our bodies, our guts are consisting of microflora, and there's like 1 trillion bacterial bugs in there. And they're actually good bugs. They're supposed to be there. They actually help feed our body with the nutrients and absorb nutrients. But what can happen when you're exposed to certain toxins or certain yeasts is you can develop an overgrowth of bad bacteria, which is known as Candida. And so some things that can cause that, and it actually creates a cycle, are overuse of antibiotics, chemicals, stress is a big one, drugs, which would be just any kind of over-the-counter, any drugs at all, really. It wipes out the good bacteria, which are the soldiers, and then it actually creates cravings and addictions for what may feed Candida, such as sugar, starches, alcohol, and then all those processed foods we are familiar with in the SAD diet, which is the standard American diet. It weakens the immune system. It can contribute to ADHD and illness, infections, and you start looking for answers. And you may or may not find any. So this is what happened to me when I was toxic with Candida. So we actually, so I was a terrible eater as a kid. I don't know if I actually said that, but I was. I was a terrible, terrible eater. So it's no surprise to me that these things started to happen to me very young, looking back now. Although not having the education that I have, I would have never known any of this. So about 3 years ago, well, two and a half years ago, I started experiencing even more symptoms. So I was fed up with the endometriosis. I had gone to the doctors. I had already decided to go back to school. And my body was pretty much toxic, I guess. And I started having some really crazy symptoms. And I was reacting to everything. So this is me having used a new face cream. So this just goes to show you how on fire my immune system was. So I couldn't try anything new. This would happen to me with creams, products. Sometimes it would happen to me if I was given a particular medication to counteract a reaction that I was having to something, and then I would have a reaction to the medication that I was taking because I was having a reaction. It was really quite a crazy circle. So it took me a while to figure it all out. And so there's this thing too called the gut-brain connection. So you wonder, can your gut really affect your brain? Well, it absolutely can. In fact, the gut is the second brain. And embryologically, they are made from exactly the same tissue. So when a fetus forms and the embryo starts to develop, the brain and the gut are developed from the exact same tissue. They are one connected piece. Okay? They are a bidirectional highway, and 90% of our immune system is embedded in our gut. Also, 90% of serotonin is manufactured in the gut. So serotonin is that feel-good hormone that actually is what people take. This is what the doctors prescribe to people who are complaining about depression. And these are just family doctors. These aren't psychiatrists or psychologists, which is another infuriating fact. But they are giving SSRIs, that's what they're called, SSRIs, which is serotonin something intake, uptake, reuptake inhibitors. I'm not even really sure. I'm not a doctor. I don't prescribe medications. But it's basically to assist the body in making serotonin. So, you take medications, you kill your gut, but your gut is where you develop 90% of your serotonin. Another crazy cycle. And immune system disorder drives brain dysfunction. So if you're killing your gut, you're basically killing your brain. And isn't it ironic, okay, that depression is labeled and treated with meds that aren't meant to help the body boost serotonin level? Let me repeat that. Depression is labeled and treated with meds that are meant to help the body boost serotonin levels, which is what I was just explaining. Is it also ironic that 95 to 100% of autistic children have gastrointestinal dysfunction, or that 70% of autistic children suffer from immune system abnormalities or suffer from allergies? So this is still 70%. 70% suffer from allergies, higher reactions to toxic exposure, which is a perfect example of the picture that I showed of my face, chronic infections. And a lot of these kids receive multiple courses of antibiotics, and they're psychologically labeled for a physiological imbalance. And if you want some more great information about depression, ADD, autism, and the brain-gut connection and how it's all tied together, there's a great series out by Dr. Mark Hyman. He is a functional medical doctor, doctor of functional medicine, and it's called The Broken Brain. And it was an excellent, excellent series. So basically, leaky gut syndrome affects the entire body, from your adrenals to your colon, which is your digestive system, your joints, thyroid, sinus and mouth, skin, and brain. So why don't doctors tell me this? Well, frankly, it's really not their fault. I don't really know that there's anyone to blame except for the people who teach the doctors, but the doctors, they just don't know. So doctors are estimated to have about 20 hours of nutrition training in their medical schooling, and that is a high level. That's like the highest. Most of them don't receive that. Where in just my certification, I took over 2,000 hours of nutrition training. So doctors are basically trained in specialties, and there's no connection. They're all trained in different things, and they're not meant to be connected. No one really talks to each other, and they're meant to diagnose. That's what they're trained to do. They're trained to specify what's happening in an illness, make a diagnosis, and prescribe medications for those symptoms. And you'll notice I said symptoms, for those symptoms, not for the problem, not for the root cause, but for the symptoms. And that's basically what medications do. They mask symptoms. And sometimes they don't even do that, in many cases for a lot of people. So how do I fix my leaky gut? First, identify food allergens and sensitivities and avoid those foods. So this is huge when it comes to healing your gut. And I can attest to this. So I am now completely allergic, not sensitive, but allergic to dairy products. And that came to be really with my mold toxicity, my mold allergy. So basically my body doesn't know the difference now between mold and dairy. And I have tested out this theory. Not only did I go through denial for quite a long time, but I went completely dairy-free for, the first time for a good solid 6 months. And I was feeling great. And I took a drive down to Massachusetts to see my stepdaughter. She was moving into a new apartment. And I was actually studying my nutrition books and doing a paper, and I was in a hotel. So I had driven 10 hours and I had stopped for the night, and I was staying at a hotel, and I decided to order, of all things, Chinese food, which is still my favorite because I can find the options that I want, knowing now how to eat. But not even thinking, I ordered an entire tub of crab rangoons. Didn't even dawn on me, and I'll be completely honest with you, that I had a complete brain fart with this. I didn't think twice about it. Never even dawned on me that that was dairy. Like, I had been practicing this forever. No dairy. I don't get dairy. I don't eat cheese. I don't put them on my sandwiches. When I go to restaurants, I don't eat cheese. But for some reason that night, it didn't even register in my brain that I was eating cheese. Of course, until I ate one, and it was so delicious. And then, I had a little bit of a shock moment and said, oh, well, I guess I'm going to see. And of course, I enjoyed pretty much every one of those. In fact, I went back in the morning and had the rest for breakfast. But didn't think about it again. Didn't think about it again really for, 32 hours. And then I really thought about it. But again, I forgot. Not until I was in the shower, completely reacting, full of eczema, in pain, that it dawned on me that I had done that. So it took quite a while for me to heal from that, about a week, maybe a little more. And I didn't ever have dairy again until, so ironically, not too long ago, my husband went away with the Army for the weekend, and I was snowed in, and I had been cooking on the wood stove and just running around, and the electricity had come back on, and I didn't feel like doing anything, and I had found these frozen pizzas in my mother's freezer. And I haven't had pizza, I don't know, 2 years. And I decided that night I was going to have pizza. Don't ask me why. I don't know why. but I did. And then I didn't think about it again until about 3 days later, when I had a huge reaction all over my body. And so it's clear. There's no more denial. I don't deny. I might be stupid and, make bad choices, but I definitely don't deny it anymore. To the point where so it took me about a week and a half to recover from this last incident. And so that's gluten too, because I'm also gluten-free. And I haven't had any joint pain in, I'd say, well over a year. Well over a year. I haven't experienced any joint pain in my hands, feet, hips, nowhere. But after this last incident, I have been experiencing some slight pain in my thumb, and I haven't experienced that in over a year. So that just goes to show you how food sensitivities can cause such awful reactions in your system. And it can take 2 to 3 days. So for someone who's not aware of a food sensitivity, they could eat something and then have symptoms 3 days later. Now, if I can know that I'm allergic to dairy and it doesn't register in my brain until the cheese is on my tongue, I can assure you that it's easy to not know what is wrong with you when you're experiencing symptoms from a reaction, having a reaction and having symptoms to something that occurred 3 days earlier. So it's really important to figure that out. In fact, it's A1 number one, if you ask me. It's hard, but it's worth figuring it out. So the other thing is to avoid inflammatory foods. And ironically, those inflammatory foods are also gluten, dairy, soy, corn, sugar, and processed foods. You then want to eat a whole foods diet full of color, rich with nutrients. You want to shop organic and GMO free. You want to eat humanely raised meats that are raised free of antibiotics and steroids. You want to reduce the toxic load in your home and in your environment. Avoid overuse of synthetic chemicals and drugs. That's over the counters, that's prescriptions. Obviously, you're not going to stop taking prescriptions that you're using for something that you need them for. But this is a good indication of what they can do to your gut. So something to keep in mind and to be aware of when you're talking to your practitioner. You want to perhaps implementing whole food supplements and beneficial herbs and probiotics. Getting adequate sleep, and that's at least 8 hours. And I know a lot of people are like, yeah, right, 8 hours, never going to happen. But unfortunately, it's really imperative that we get enough sleep, because that's the body's custodial hours. That's the time when your body is actually working to release all of the bad stuff. Cleaning house, it's cleaning time. And when we don't allow our bodies to do that, we end up with all kinds of issues that just aggravate current symptoms and may create more. And also, finally, one of the biggest things is to reduce stress. So what are you thinking? Are you having like this light bulb moment where you're like, I get it. Like, okay, maybe that's what's happening. Are you ready to feel free? Are you like, yeah, this is it. I can totally do this. I know this is going to help me. Or are you more like this? Because I know I was like this. This is me. I was not a happy camper. But I am ready to give you a hand if you're ready to do the work. So in my coaching, I do use a very stress-free and pain-free functional approach. And that is first education, where you can learn everything there is to learn about what your situation is, what your issues are, and the best way to approach fixing your problem. And then 2, we work on preparation, how to do it in a stress-free way, knowing what choices to make that are the best for you and your situation. And then thirdly, action, which of course is the hardest, but most important part. So some of my services that I offer are one-time coaching. So I offer a 1-hour consultation. So this is perfect for someone who likes to take charge when they make a decision and they're ready to tackle whatever challenge may be facing them. And all they really need, I did it again. And all they really need is, the information to get started and a map to follow. So this package includes a full intake form evaluation. And this intake form is a long mileage form. We really get down to the nitty gritty. I think it's 22, 23 pages long. It also includes a one-time 1-hour personalized consult, my 53-page Whole Foods guide. And this is full of nutritional information regarding gluten and grains today, as well as explanations of the most popular eating styles today in regards to healthy eating and eating for health, not heat, health. This guide also has even more information in online links within the food guide that allow you to dive even deeper into some of these important topics. I also give a pantry makeover guide, which teaches you how to divide your pantry into safe foods and unsafe foods, and allows you to really see what you're looking at in your kitchen and maybe how to sort through those. Also, a customized 14-day meal plan and a Whole Foods recipe guide. I also offer additional appointments available a la carte for after, if anyone is interested in following up for extra counseling or consultation. And then I offer my 3-month lifestyle detour package. So this package is perfect for anyone who needs ongoing support, guidance, and accountability. So they would like to have someone riding shotgun right there with them to help navigate all the different avenues and information, while also being there to support decisions. Sometimes we all need that special support system when we're making big changes in our lives, especially ones as important as our future and our health. So this package includes a full intake form evaluation and a personalized consultation. It includes 4 coaching sessions every 3 weeks, unlimited email support, 53-page Whole Foods guide, the pantry makeover guide, and also 1 session of the 4 being a pantry makeover that we can do together, 30-day transformation guide, and 30-day customized weekly meal plan, and then a Whole Foods recipe guide. And also I offer packages, this exact package in different packages for singles, couples, and families. So are you ready to commit to your freedom? Are you ready to be completely free of pain? I don't know that you're going to be completely free of pain, but I know that I feel amazing. And if you're ready to make the commitment to yourself, you too can feel so much better. So I offer a free 15-minute discovery session. If you're interested in knowing more, you can message me at thehippiekitchen@gmail.com. And you can also find me anytime at www.thehippiekitchen.com, where there is a form there for the consult. You can email me there as well. So I want to thank you for being here and listening to this presentation, and I hope that you found this information helpful and that it's empowering you and that you know the next steps that you need to take in order to feel better for yourself and achieve your optimal health, whatever that may be. So I'm going to shut off my recording